Imagine someone offered you a deal. You could become the richest person alive. More gold than kings. More land than entire nations. A name that people would still remember 26 centuries later. There was only one condition. One day, you would lose almost everything. Would you still take it? Around 2,600 years ago, one man unknowingly accepted that deal. His name was Croesus. Even today, his name is almost synonymous with wealth. The ancient Greeks had a saying, as rich as Croesus. When your name becomes the definition of wealth itself, you've reached a level few people ever will. His kingdom overflowed with gold. Merchants crossed continents to trade with him. Foreign rulers sought his friendship. To the outside world, Croesus looked untouchable. But history has a habit of exposing one uncomfortable truth. The more secure people feel, the easier it becomes to mistake wealth for safety. And those two things are rarely the same.
Now, imagine you have $100. How much would you risk if someone promised to double your money? All of it? Half? $10? Most people answer emotionally. The wealthy rarely do. Because truly wealthy people don't think in terms of how much they can gain. They think in terms of how much they can afford to lose. That single difference changes almost every financial decision they'll ever make. If you lose everything once, the game is over. If you lose a little, you get another chance. That's why today's story isn't really about Croesus. It's about a principle that quietly separates fortunes that last from fortunes that become history. Let's call it the 33% rule. Not because history records Croesus using those exact words, but because if you study the rise and fall of great fortunes, this is the lesson they all seem to whisper.
Imagine dividing everything you own into 3 equal parts. The first third is never allowed to disappear. Ever. This is your foundation. It protects you from becoming desperate. The second third is allowed to work. Businesses, investments, calculated risks. This is where growth happens. The final third is the only part you truly gamble with. New ideas, big opportunities, speculation. If it succeeds, wonderful. If it fails, your life doesn't collapse with it. Simple, almost obvious. Yet history suggests most people instinctively do the exact opposite. They risk the foundation to protect the dream. Look at almost every financial disaster. People borrow against their homes to chase a larger return. They mortgage stable assets to buy unstable ones. They convince themselves that confidence is the same thing as certainty. Then reality arrives, usually without warning. The market changes. A business slows down. A war begins. Interest rates rise. Suddenly, one bad decision doesn't cost them profit. It costs them options. And once your options disappear, your freedom usually disappears shortly after. Croesus made a remarkably similar mistake. At the height of his power, he believed his wealth gave him control over the future. When he considered going to war against the Persian Empire, he sought advice from the famous oracle of Delphi. The answer sounded almost perfect. If you cross the river, a great empire will fall. Croesus heard exactly what he wanted to hear. Victory, destiny, confirmation. So he marched. The prophecy came true. A great empire did fall. His own. That's the strange thing about confidence. It rarely feels dangerous while you're experiencing it. Only afterward. Here's what fascinates me most about that story. Croesus didn't lose because he lacked intelligence. He didn't lose because he lacked resources. He didn't even lose because he was poor at building wealth. He lost because success slowly convinced him that the rules no longer applied to him. History repeats that pattern constantly. The first $1 million teaches caution. The 10th million often teaches confidence. The 100th million sometimes teaches invincibility. And invincibility is usually where the decline begins.
There's an old observation in investing. The biggest losses rarely come from bad opportunities. They come from oversized positions. Being right doesn't save you if you bet too much. And being wrong doesn't destroy you if you never risk enough to lose everything. That's the real idea behind the 33% rule. It isn't about the number itself. It's about refusing to let one decision decide your entire future. Because the goal of wealth was never to win once. It was always to stay in the game.
So what exactly makes the 33% rule so powerful? It's simple. The rule doesn't maximize your profits. It maximizes your survival. And survival is the foundation of every great fortune in history. Think about the strongest oak tree in a forest. People admire its size, its height, its branches. Almost nobody looks underground. Yet that's where the real strength is. The roots spread farther than the tree itself. Nature understands something humans often forget. You don't grow upward first. You secure the foundation first. Then you grow. Money works the same way. Most people spend years trying to build taller branches. Very few spend time growing deeper roots. Then the first serious storm arrives, and suddenly the tallest tree is the first one to fall.
This is why nearly every long-lasting fortune shares one characteristic: patience. Not speed, not brilliance. Patience. John D. Rockefeller became one of the richest men in history. People remember the billions. They rarely remember how conservative he was with risk. He hated unnecessary debt. He kept enormous reserves. He preferred surviving 10 recessions instead of getting rich in one boom. That doesn't sound exciting, which is exactly why most people ignore it.
Warren Buffett once said his first rule of investing is simple: never lose money. His second rule: never forget the first. Of course, every investor experiences losses. That isn't what Buffett meant. He meant something deeper. Never make a decision that can permanently remove you from the game. Because once you're forced out, the market keeps going without you. Time becomes someone else's advantage, not yours.
Look back at Croesus. He wasn't defeated the moment he crossed the river. He was defeated much earlier. The day he believed one decision deserved almost everything he had built. That's the strange thing about catastrophic mistakes. They're usually invisible until they're irreversible. The final collapse gets all the attention. The quiet overconfidence that caused it rarely does.
Now ask yourself something honest. Imagine the opportunity of a lifetime appeared tomorrow. Would one decision have the power to completely change your future? If the answer is yes, you're risking too much. If one investment, one business, one trade, one loan can destroy everything you've spent years building, then you don't own your wealth. Your next decision does. That's a dangerous place to be.
The 33% rule isn't really about percentages. 33 is simply a reminder that something should always remain protected, something should always remain productive, and something should always remain available for opportunity. Notice what this creates: balance. When one part struggles, the other two keep you standing. When opportunity appears, you still have capital. When disaster strikes, you still have options. And options are what separate temporary setbacks from permanent failure.
History remembers Croesus because he became incredibly wealthy.
But perhaps the more valuable lesson is how quickly certainty can become vulnerability. Every generation believes the rules have changed, that this time is different, that technology makes old principles obsolete, that markets only move upward, that success proves wisdom. History quietly disagrees. Empires change, currencies change, technology changes. Human nature barely does. Greed still whispers, fear still panics, overconfidence still blinds, and discipline still wins far more often than genius.
So let's go back to the question from the beginning. Imagine someone offered you unimaginable wealth. On one condition: one day you'd risk losing everything. Today, you know there's a third option. You don't have to choose between fear and ambition, between hiding your money or gambling all of it. The greatest fortunes were rarely built by people who took the biggest risks. They were built by people who made sure no single risk could end the story. That's the real meaning behind the 33% rule. Not a magical percentage, a way of thinking. Protect enough to survive. Invest enough to grow. Risk enough to move forward. But never so much that one bad decision writes the final chapter for you. Because Croesus lost a kingdom. Rockefeller built an empire. Buffett protected one. Different centuries, different worlds, the same lesson. Wealth isn't measured by how much you can win. It's measured by how much you can afford to lose and still keep playing. The richest people don't survive because they predict the future. They survive because they never let the future make a single decision powerful enough to destroy them. That's the 33% rule.